Hey, well, good morning. Welcome, everybody. We appreciate you guys, everybody, spending some of their time with us this morning. I'm Jonathan Penn. Joining with me today, my advisor colleague, Richard Rosso. Hey, Rich, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. We are with Clarity Financial. Also, we do business as RIA Advisors. And just to give you an idea here, we are registered with the Securities Exchange Commission. We are fiduciaries. And today we are going to be having a very educational discussion around Social Security. This is a very common topic that Rich and I, and actually all of our advisors here, all of our advisor colleagues, talk about with clients on a regular basis. And we want to just keep this very educational today. And just really, we want you all to learn from this, take something away from it in this Candid Coffee format that we have here this morning. So maybe, hey, Rich, maybe before we kind of dive in on some of the actual Social Security material here, talk a little bit about Candid Coffee. How did this start? How did you come up with this?
Well, I mean, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, thank you. We really appreciate it. These series are designed to be informal and educational, if you could sort of put those two together. And we created Candid Coffee during COVID, when people were frustrated, they couldn't do anything, and it became this, well, let's just sit around in our bathrobes around the kitchen table and have a conversation. And it took off, right? We would have all kinds of questions because people were delving into the unknown. And we've grown from there. So it was great because it gave clients and others an ability to share their frustration, ask questions. I think it's still successful to this day. Now, sometimes we do a Candid Coffee like this, where we're giving you some advice and a presentation for the most part. But most of our Candid Coffees, and that's why you're on our list now, sorry. The other Candid Coffees is just, hey, what's on your mind about markets or Social Security or Medicare, investments, financial, whatever it is. Danny will rapid fire questions at me, and we'll answer them together. So I think through the presentation as well today, you are going to get a lot of the great questions we got answered. And they're very common, but they're very important questions that you all asked. So the whole goal is to make Social Security less intimidating to you. And Jonathan, I will tell you, John, this is the one thing. There's so much headline clickbait on Social Security. It compels people to make very terrible decisions. We want to bust those myths. We want to help you understand that you're going to cut off your nose to spite your face if you're making certain decisions. As we go through this, we don't look at anything emotionally, by the way. We don't look at anything politically. We examine the data. That's what our firm does, and we're here to give you the most unbiased information we can. If we really thought that there were some big issues that are in this clickbait fodder, you'll hear it today that, yes, this is legitimate. You need to worry. So hope you enjoy it.
Now, really appreciate the overview there, Rich, and everybody. Hey, thank you for joining us. If this is your a repeat Candid Coffee, thanks for coming back. If this is your first, like Rich said, we really appreciate you taking some time to join us this morning. But before we dive in, kind of a teaser question. All right, here's the teaser. So in life, so for everybody, think about this. So just kind of answer it to yourselves. In life, would you rather be early or delayed? That's question one. You want to be early or delayed?
I, for one, am always early.
You are early.
I am never delayed.
Ever?
Never.
Never.
Unless my girlfriend makes me late. That's.
I hope she's not listening this morning. Question two. We like to have a little fun here too, folks.
Yes.
Question two. Would you rather pay a penalty or get a bonus?
Bonus.
Just some things to think about, right? Rich already knows his answers, right?
I did.
But Rich, you brought us some really great points in the overview where you're talking about, folks that, are making decisions they're making costly decisions.
Yeah.
Emotional decisions.
They are. When our parents retired, or your parents retired, they didn't think much about Social Security sometimes. Why? They had pensions. Social Security was a nice add-on, but for the most part, a lot of people in this greatest generation and early boomers had pensions. We don't have those anymore. So Social Security has become America's pension. So we have to help you look at this in a different way and avoid these costly decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. So some things to think about or some things to know, right? There are many claiming options. I think folks fail to realize that there are a number of different combinations or ways that you can claim Social Security.
There were 18,000 different combinations.
18,000.
You have to remember, and your decisions have these big consequences. They're not just your own. So you have to remember that if you are married, this is a spousal or family decision. This is not yours. And studies show men, a lot of times, sorry, men, make the decision to take it early without ever, one, consulting their spouse, or two, understanding how the wage dynamics work between them. So not only could you be hurting yourself, but you're also hurting those you leave behind. And the system is not bankrupt. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's a pay-as-you-go system. So yeah, there are some demographic issues we need to be concerned about, right? At one point, it was like 6 workers for every 1 retiree, and we know how many people turn 65 every day. We have a demographics issue. We don't have enough babies, and we don't have enough population growth. So we have to be cognizant of that. And benefits can help a family member if you have young children. And your friends are not experts. Most likely, they're falling for the narratives. Your situation is going to be different than your neighbors, and always remember that. Or if you hear something and it sounds like, oh my gosh, my neighbor took it early because he says it's going away, you better consult your fiduciary advisor and figure it out unemotionally.
Yeah, because you'll see a little bit later in the presentation here this morning, if you do decide to take it early and you're still working, you have wages that can affect your benefit. So just things that maybe sometimes get a little bit overlooked. So things that so our goal here is to kind of educate everybody through the presentation here today, just the discussion. And I think this first point on this slide, Rich, I think this is probably the question that I'm getting a lot of folks that are kind of in that boomer generation, as you might say, and that is, is Social Security going to be there? Is it because everybody hears that it's going to go broke in 2034?
Is it going away?
Right.
So here's that issue that you have to keep in mind and it's very common. Listen, these are good questions. Will Social Security be there? Right? I don't hear a lot of people asking about how to maximize my benefits or optimize them. I wish more people would ask that. Now, will Social Security be enough to live on in retirement? Now, let me share 2 points with this. A lot of people depend on Social Security as their primary. A lot of older Americans. That is their pension. They couldn't live without it. Now, say you're a super saver. You blow it out. You max out your plans. You save more on the side. Whatever you're doing, keep this in mind. Having a guaranteed income stream to augment your variable assets like stocks and bonds, it's a synergy. It creates a bigger ball of money for you. So even if you've been a good saver, a great saver, you live below your expectations, you're doing all the right things, Social Security guaranteed income, inflation adjusted, will take you over the top. And that is very important for anybody to understand.
Yeah, so it all comes into really understanding the value of how does Social Security really fit into a much larger, holistic, kind of cohesive plan when you're looking at all these various income streams that you have, right, Rich?
Yeah, so let me also explain this. Most of you probably have a portfolio of stocks and bonds, right? And those are great when you get a nice tailwind to returns. Think about 2012. We had this huge tailwind, accommodative Fed. The guaranteed income is nice, but man, I'm doing so well. Look at the last few years. But there will be times you will get a headwind to returns, and your forward-looking returns will be lower than expected. Thus, maybe you have to lower your withdrawal rate on your variable portfolio. That guaranteed income coming in the same amount every month is very important. It becomes much more important. And there are studies out there, John, and I wrote this. If you haven't signed up for our blog, go to realinvestmentadvice.com. It's one of the top blogs in the country. Lance Roberts, we all write for it. And there's a study that talks about people with guaranteed income spend more. And intuitively, that makes sense, right? If I have $2,000 a month coming in, if I have $2,000 a month in January, I can spend it all because I know in February I'm getting another $2,000. But what between January and February, the market goes down 15%? Would I rethink my withdrawal rate? Maybe. Would I be hesitant to spend? Possibly. So this is the value of guaranteed income. This is the value of Social Security. Now, some of you here have guaranteed income through pensions. I'm very jealous. You've created your own pensions. Like I have a guaranteed income annuities that will kick in at age 72 or something like that. That will augment my guaranteed or build my guaranteed income pile of money that I would like to have. So keep in mind, Social Security is an annuity. An annuity is not a four-letter word. So we want to help you understand that value. And again, with this topic, we might run a little late, maybe to 9:15 or so. So keep this in mind. This will be recorded on YouTube later on, or I think we will send you a copy of this once it's done with our master producer, Brent Clanton. So just keep in mind, if there's anything you miss, you'll be able to watch this later.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. And you a lot of great points through that because I know there are a lot of individuals and families that we serve where they've been, really in that accumulator phase, and now they're kind of transitioning over to that. Hey, I need to start pulling from the portfolio, and that Social Security decision to help create that paycheck in retirement it's a really valuable and important decision. So this one right here, though, it seems to be such a common question that we get. Will Social Security, will it be here? Is it going broke? And if it is, should I go ahead and just take my benefit as early as I can at 62, right? Why not just take it in now? Why not just lock it in now?
There are a lot of irrational fears about solvency. So we're going to look at what the trustees say because we follow the trust fund. So this is what you look like right now.
I was going to say, so as of the end of last year, there's like a little over 2.7 trillion that are actually in the trust fund.
Yes.
And I think there's a concern, Rich, that folks think that the trust fund is just going to run out. But maybe it helps to understand how the trust fund is funded.
Well, one, it's going to run out, and two, there is no trust fund. There is. And they'll say, well, what's in there is no good. Well, they're treasuries. They're special issue treasuries, but those are treasuries. So treasuries, if you believe in the United States, 100% guaranteed. These are treasuries. Now, it's a special grade of treasury, but it's a treasury. So keep in mind, a baby boomer start retiring, then the trust fund assets will gradually be drawn down. So we have to look at long-term projections for the trust fund. Now, there is some legislation out there to do some things to increase the viability of Social Security. One is there's a bill out there right now out of Hawaii, Democrat out of Hawaii is talking about we need to raise the wage base, maybe increase the retirement age by a year. Little things to shore it up, right? So increase your maximum earnings because right now we cap out at 176,100. And above that, nobody's getting taxed on Social Security. Raise that age. Lower benefits. This is the one that people are concerned about. And then reduce cost of living adjustments. Actually, in the bill, there's something, when we look at inflation in Social Security, we're using CPI-U, which is just urban wage earner inflation. But employee and retirees have different needs. So there is something out there, it's a little nebulous, it's called CPI-E for elderly. I don't like the elderly thing, but that's what it's called. And it focuses more on expenses you have as an older American, and we might be using that, which means you get a higher cost of living adjustment. So minor tweaks to get this thing really up and running.
Yeah. I know for me, my normal retirement age is when I'm 67, I like to say 67 years young, right? I mean, chances are that could be changed. We'll see, right?
I don't think it will be for you. I mean, when I look at this for a lot of people, it's like if you were born after, say, 1987, 1990, that's the one that you might hit on the 68 years old. And people are working longer. That's just a fact of life. Baby boomers are staying in the workforce longer, and they're delaying the Social Security decision. So
Yeah.
at least some of them are that are actually focusing on the data and not the narratives, which is very important.
It is important.
So the long-term projections. So the bottom line for baby boomers is your benefits are not likely to be affected. That's fact. I mean, the odd it can change. So what's now the clearer way to think about it?
Yeah.
How do we go forward with this? So this is inflation protected income. That's right. You've paid it in every paycheck. So you got to be smart and know when to collect, right? Not many, like even pensions, are not inflation adjusted. And inflation is a killer in retirement. So this is an inflation protected income. Now, I think we won't know until toward the fourth quarter, but roughly, I think the next cost of living adjustment is aiming to be around 2.7%. We'll see how it winds up. But every year, there's that COLA, or cost of living adjustment. So that's something that you definitely need to understand.
So talk a little bit about this too, Rich, around, I think so many times folks, they kind of have an idea about when they're going to, pass away. Well, this is the age, like, they already have a kind of a predetermined notion in their mind as far as when they're going to pass on to better places. But then the question that I have too is, what if you live, right? And look at this longevity from an income standpoint with Social Security.
So here's a way to think about Social Security that's a little different. Okay. Social Security is one of the few assets or sources of income you cannot outlive. Right. So, like you said, I have a lot of people who know exactly when they're going to die.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Oh no. No. I'm not living past this age. I mean, is this by design or what's going on? Right? What if you live? With the technology that's coming out in AI, with healthcare diagnostics, you could very well live to 100 years old. So what people sometimes look at Social Security as a break even, right? I paid FICA. I want to get my money's worth. I want to get my money back. Okay. That's the wrong way to look at it. The right way to look at it is, what if I live longer than mortality tables say? Right? I want cash flow in retirement that's inflation protected. And so you have to look at Social Security as insurance, longevity risk insurance. And if you're not going to live long or longer than life expectancy tables, your spouse may. So some people will look at this just as single life expectancies. You've got to look at two. So if you live 10 or more years, right? 20 or more years, 30 or more years, your monthly benefit, your lifetime, and sometimes when we do an analysis, we do it in lump sum, and people see by claiming early, they might be giving up $700,000, $1 million in benefits over time. And that's not chump change. So this is income. So people will say, well, I'll be dead. Yeah, but what if you live is the question. I had one client that goes, listen, I'm taking Social Security at 62 because I want to have fun with the money. I want to go to Las Vegas and I want to do this. I said, well, I would rather wait because when I'm drooling in my cereal and my Cheerios and my head falls in the bowl, I need someone to pull it out. And unless they're getting paid properly, they may leave me in there with the bubbles. I'm not doing that. So it's longevity risk insurance. Reframe how you think about Social Security and understand people are exceedingly living longer.
Well, yeah, especially if you're eating your Cheerios, are they at least the honey frosted ones? Or wow, you're being very.
In that case, I don't want them to pull my head out of the bowl.
That's right. Hey, so here's a common concern that I get, Rich, around Social Security. Mm-hmm. Hey, John, I'm going to take it at 62. I'm going to lock in my benefit now because if Social Security should get means tested in the future, hey, I'm protected. I'm taking my benefit now at 62. I have not seen anything out there that says if I take my Social Security benefit early, and then if there are some changes later to Social Security, that I am protected from that. Have you seen anything around that?
No.
Okay.
So there's this narrative that they'll leave me alone. Why will they leave you alone? It's the government. And you never assume. You know what they say about that in The Odd Couple? You make an ass out of you and me when you assume, because you can't assume that. If it's going to be a 20% haircut to the butt, and we'll talk about this, you might be cut too. So don't think that taking it today, or you're thinking like, I'll get what I can out of it before it goes away. Wrong ways to think about it.
Yeah.
Wrong ways to think about it. So that's very true.
So talk a little bit about, you were mentioning the COLA, the cost of living adjustments. Maybe talk a little bit more around that too.
Well, your annual COLAs are say 2%. In 10 years, you'll be receiving $2,438 check. In 20 years, it's $2,972. In 30 years, it's $3,623. So I have people right now, when I look at them, and if you haven't done this, you need to do it. You go to SSA.gov, create your ID, look at your Social Security, look at your PIA or primary insurance amount, right? Look at it at age 70. So I have clients right now that are they're going to start taking benefits at 70. Their benefits at $4,500, $4,600, and their spouse is getting half of that. That's not chump change. That's not chump change. And it's inflation adjusted, which is very important. So the claiming decision you make is going to affect your cash flow for a lifetime. And then when you're gone, possibly your spouse's lifetime. So big ramifications to incorrect claiming.
Yeah, because like in that example that you just mentioned, and we'll look at this here in a little bit too, but assuming sometimes I'll pick on the men a little bit, sorry, if we should predecease our spouse, well, then in that particular scenario, if the husband was the higher earning, had the higher benefit, well, then his surviving spouse will then step into that higher benefit, right?
That's right. That's right. So how much can I expect to receive, right? Show me the money. Well, we want to talk about this. Well, you got to look at a few things. You got to look at how much you earned over your working career, the age at which you applied for benefits. So if you've maxed out the system, you're going to see when you look at your Social Security statement, you're going to see all the zeros populated. You know, the Social Security statement is a walk down memory lane. Like in 1982, I made $800. What did I do? What was I doing as a teenager? Like, what was I making? Like, what? I don't remember. Was it the fruit store or what was it? Right. So now, say you are been a stay-at-home spouse. I have a client who's a stay-at-home spouse. She has lots of zeros on her statement. So her benefit was like $868 a month. She went back to work and started populating those zeros, even though she wasn't at the highest wage base, and her benefit went from $868 to $1,350 something dollars. So big difference in 4 or 5 years because she's filling in the hole. So for the most part, if you maxed out, if you've been at the top wage base for 35 years, right? You have to keep this in mind. If you have done this, then at age 62, you've pretty much maxed out. I mean, unless you're going to replace a zero or a lower earning year, at age 62, if you've been a higher paid employer at the top of the wage base level, you're probably maxed out. So now the money sits there and earns the cost of living adjustment each year, right? So it's the highest 35 years. And then there are these things called Ben points, which we won't get too much into because there's a lot of math and actuarial stuff, but I will share some knowledge about it that you may have not known. What you care about is the PIA on your statement, primary insurance amount. And then the benefit is increased each year by the cost of living adjustments.
And on this slide, that AIME is the average indexed monthly earnings, if anybody's curious about those top 35 years of earnings.
Exactly. Now that AIME, I will tell you, people don't focus on it very much, and nothing you need to worry about. We're just showing you the formula here. This is not something I would memorize. I would focus more on my PIA. But we know every year, cost of living adjustment is going to increase my PIA. But inside that AIME, inside that formula, there's a wage index. That's what that is. So when overall wages grow in the country, that middle of that formula grows. So that PIA gets bigger, but it's sort of like Jiffy Pop. Like you ever see put that on the stove with the tin
I
thing
remember
open?
Jiffy Pop.
Yeah, but underneath, you know something's going on underneath that tin foil, right? You just don't know exactly what, but there's something going on. That's what's happening. That when you see higher wage-based numbers or people making more wages inside that formula, it's also boosting your PIA. And that's just something for you to take a look at. That's why you should be examining your statements once every year. Once you get closer to retirement, maybe more frequently, but for the most part, you want to make sure you're signed up with your ID on ssa.gov. It's really easy to navigate. And this is, again, very common, right?
Yeah.
Why am I delaying until 70?
Right. Why shouldn't I just go ahead and get it now, Rich?
I'm going to go to Las Vegas. So it's going to be reduced. Your benefits reduced by at least 20%, right? And if you're working, to your point, if you're 62 and working a full-time job, the last thing you're going to do is take Social Security because you're going to get a reduction in benefit or withheld until you're at full retirement age. People don't understand that. They think if they take it. Now, if you are retired at 62 and you're making a little income from a part-time job, or anything like that, and you know you're ill, listen, every situation is different. We're not big fans of taking it at 62, but if you need that money to put food on the table, you need that money to put food on the table, right? Nobody's going to judge you. We just want to make sure you're doing the right things to make the right decision for your family. So you have to understand there is really negative. It's really negative to take it at 62 if you're still working your full-time job. So when should you apply for benefits, right? We got to look at that. Well, health makes a difference, right? So people give me the excuse, well, I'm going to die at 65 because my parents died around that age. My dad died at 52. My mom died at 59. I'm 61. I'm still here, right? Because less than 20% of your longevity is based on your genetics. It's lifestyle. If you have a really good lifestyle, good diet, exercise regularly, your health status, life expectancy might be greater, which means this is longevity risk insurance. Need for income. Now, where I don't think this slide is right, is need for guaranteed income, because guaranteed income is the income you can outlive. If your portfolio goes to zero, this is the money that still comes in, right?
Right.
Do you plan to work, right? Do I plan to work from age 62? I could, most likely I am, right? So a lot of times what we suggest at RIA, if you're going to retire at 62, you start drawing down on your IRAs or tax deferred accounts to reduce that, because eventually you're going to have something called required minimum distributions. And you have no tax control with that. The government wants their money and they're going to give you the formula and you're going to take that RMD, right? And then survivor needs, so important. So important. One, you have a spouse, especially who's younger, lower wage earner. We're also seeing changes in family dynamics. We're seeing 60-year-olds marrying 35-year-olds and having kids. Well, then I don't care about your benefits, sir. I'm more worried about the wife and the kids' survivor needs. So all of these go into the formula for you to make a proper decision.
So, and you were already kind of addressing this, Rich. Will that Social Security income be enough on its own to live on in retirement?
It really depends, but probably not. But let me say, do you like your cake with icing or just dry? You could have built up a really great cake, but that icing really tops it off. So even if you've been a good saver, that Social Security is going to make your plan even more successful. But there are people that are older Americans that over 90% of their income, 60 to 90% of their income is coming from Social Security. And they need it to live.
They do.
So it used to be, when Social Security came out, it was supposed to be a complement to your pension. It wasn't supposed to be the pension, but that's what it's become. It's become America's pension.
Yeah, it's kind of become something that it was never really intended to be.
Right.
Right?
Right. Full retirement age is something you want to know, FRA. That's when you get your full benefit, right? So for us, John, it's 67. These numbers haven't been changed in decades. And people are living longer. It does tell you that you need another tier in there to bring that to 68. It just does. So, you'll see this depending on when you were born. For a lot of people that we work with, it's 1960 or later, or late 50s and so forth. Then it's 66 and 8 months, 66 and 10 months, and then it goes up to 67. But this table needs to be adjusted for the next generation, and it hasn't been.
Yeah. Hey, question. So if let's say you take Social Security after your full retirement age, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
So after your full retirement age, but you still have income, you have wages, right? When you take your Social Security benefit and you still have earned income, are you locking in your benefit at that time? In other words, will future wages that you earn affect your benefit at that point?
Well, I gave you the example of the woman I work with who's done a great job filling in zeros.
Yeah.
So if you have zeros on your statement or some really lower earning years, and you can replace them, yes. But for the most part, if you've been at the top of the wage base,
yeah,
you're probably maxed out. So it really depends on the earnings history that you pull, right? At the top 35 years, because if I have a year in there that I made 80,000, but every other year did great, but then I get a year that I make 100, it might replace it, right? So keep this in mind. If you apply for early benefits, you get cut. If I'm 62 years old, if my full retirement age is 66, I'm getting a 75% haircut. So your haircut, what you got to remember, your haircut is roughly about 20%. The closer I get to my full retirement age, the less the haircut.
Yeah.
And this haircut is permanent and it affects your spouse. So keep that in mind. So if you apply for early benefits, so some people say, I want to take it to 62. I said, well, you're retiring at 63 and you need the money. Why don't we wait? Why don't we wait even another year? Because we go from 75 to 80%. And you're like, oh, okay, I think I could do that. I think I could do that. So people think they can only apply at 62 or 67 or 70. They don't realize there's all these years in between that you can claim and get less of a cut to your benefit, depending on your situation.
And what about if you apply after you hit your full retirement age?
Ooh, well, so then remember, you get something called delayed benefit credits. You get delayed credits that are roughly about 8%. So think about this. If you wait to age 70, and that's also on your Social Security statement, your benefits is going to be 132% of PIA of 62 or 66 or 124% of 67. But if you wait to your full retirement age, look how large this benefit. So people will say, well, it's an 8% rate of return each year after your full retirement age. Yeah, in some cases it is, but it's looking at mortality tables. So if you're really healthy and you have a younger spouse who hasn't paid in as much, you are going to want to delay. Again, unless you really need the money. If you're doing it for an emotional decision, we're not doing that anymore, right? You're at Candid Coffee. We don't do that. We're going to look at your overall situation and figure it out. But no, it's a hefty bonus level at 70. Then people say, what if I just wait and not take it at 70? Well, that's not worth it. You got to take it at 70. There's no benefit to waiting after that. Got to take it.
Yeah. So you were talking a little bit earlier, Rich, about where you can go to kind of look at and kind of estimate, kind of peek at what your Social Security benefits are.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that My Social Security account is a great resource, or what are some other resources maybe that folks can use?
Yeah, the retirement estimator is not bad. You can use any of the calculators if you have your earnings history in front of you, which is even better, because you're inputting every year. It's a little bit of pain in the neck. So, but you could do that. You could run the estimator and say, okay, well, I'm planning to work more years. Maybe I need to improve or I want to maximize my benefit and I want to improve my earnings record, right? I can figure out and sort of play with these numbers. The calculators are not bad. to use. Most people, I don't know, use them, but at least get your statement.
Yeah, I think the that My Social Security account where you can go in and look at your statement, they can give you a projection of benefits based
That's
upon
right.
your earnings history. It's actually pretty
Not
well
bad.
done. Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty well
it
done.
is. So why do I delay benefits? We're talking about it again. Look at age 70 of my benefit with COLA. It's $4,359 a month.
Yeah.
Right. And if I have a younger spouse, say I'm 70, my spouse is 60, and that spouse has not earned as much as I have, or maybe collecting my spousal benefit, maybe never really paid in. When I'm gone, my spouse gets that $4,359 as a survivor benefit.
Right.
So a lot of times what you're trying to do is get the survivor benefit high enough so that your spouse is comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes
No,
down
I mean,
to
look at
it's
that.
more income later on. I mean, look at that out at age. Look at the benefit at age 85 as an example, right?
Yeah, we're just claiming 2% cost of living adjustment. And in the last
Right.
few years, it's been more. So this is just a 2%.
Yeah.
A lot of pensions, we don't have that cost of living adjustment. So how can I maximize my benefits? So we'll take a look at a couple of strategies here. So, well, we just said this. If you have time, you can improve your earning record. Do you have any missing years? Can I replace zeros? Can I replace lower earning years? Right? Even if you start receiving Social Security, but continue to work, your earnings record is going to be updated. But you got to remember, if you start receiving Social Security before full retirement age and you earn over a certain amount each year, it's $23,400 in 2025. $1 in benefits will be withheld for every $2 you earn over the threshold. So I have a client that had to take it at 62, but she wanted to work. We always make sure she works at Walmart. She's okay with it, but she makes sure she stays below the cap. Like, what did you earn this year? Like, in the middle of the year, what are you earning? Don't work overtime, because you're gonna get this withholding. Now, you don't lose the benefit; it will come back to you later. But the point I'm making is, you can still work and have benefits at 62. You just got to be very careful about that threshold, which is usually indexed for inflation.
Right. But when you reach your full retirement age month, let's say you wait and you turn on your benefit in the month that you reach your full retirement age, at that point, it doesn't matter what your income is, because then your benefit will not be affected by those wages.
Again, everybody's situation is personal. That's why you don't ask your Uncle Murray or your neighbor next door. Oh, it's going away. I took it at 62. Okay, no. You got to look at your income needs, your life expectancy, and your spouse's life expectancy. Women outlive men. John Penn says it's on purpose. You got to go after a while. You just got to go.
I live in a house full of ladies between my wife and my daughter, so I already know I'm outnumbered.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, he hasn't seen his bathroom in 5 years. So
that's why I'm at the office today.
That's right, to use the bathroom. Too bad we don't have a shower in there. So you have to consider all of this. And this blows all the narratives away, because we have to base it on our situation at the time and how much income we require based on our financial plan.
Correct. Is Social Security going to be available? When's the right time for me to take? Hey, how is this all taxed? This is another very common question that I know that we get on a very regular basis, Rich.
Well, some people don't realize that Social Security is taxed. And it's a really convoluted formula that gets you there. I don't want to bother everybody with it, but it does include municipal income, like from tax-free bonds, half your Social Security. So if we're going to look at it, say, before full retirement age, remember, $1 in benefits will be withheld for every $2 you earn over $23,400. But the benefit will be adjusted at full retirement age. So, I mean, so don't let the earnings test discourage you from working, right? To avoid the earnings test, wait until full retirement age or later. The reason you take at 62, again, you need the money. Some people, some men have worked physical jobs, physical labor. They can't do it anymore. At 62, they're like, I can't. I just can't. And I have no other. I mean, my income is really low. I need this to live. Would take it, right? You've got a health scare. Your longevity looks like it's at risk. We take it. Maybe we don't take it at full retirement age. Maybe we take it a year before, 2 years before. We don't have to take it at 62. Maybe we take it at 65. Whatever it is, every situation is different. So that's the annual earnings test. But then keep in mind, there's this provisional income formula. Now, this is at full retirement age. Full retirement age, people will say, well, are my benefits taxed? Yeah. I mean, President Trump talked about this, right? He wanted to remove taxes on
Social Security.
I didn't think that was going to happen because that further deteriorates the trust fund. But there's an additional $6,000 standard deduction at 65, right? It phases out. There's an AGI limitation to it. So maybe for people that are actually caught in the middle of this 50 to 85% taxable of Social Security within these provisional income levels. And again, provisional income is a formula that will include your income, including distributions from IRAs. That's income. But we'll also throw in 1/2 of your Social Security and I got tax-free bonds, so I don't pay federal tax. Yeah, you don't, but it goes into this formula. So a lot of people, especially middle income people, are taxed on Social Security up to 85%. Once I'm making, if I'm getting $100,000 in retirement, my Social Security is taxed at 85%. But there were a lot of people in this wedge of 50 to 85%, where President Trump was trying to relieve some of that pressure for a lot of lower middle class people who are getting taxed. So we're going to remove that for them. We're going to mollify it, right? We're going to give you $6,000 to adjust it. So keep in mind that you have to be sensitive to the fact that your marginal tax rate, not your bracket, your rate of what you're going to pay, could be a lot higher than you think. If you consider that 50 cents on the dollar between certain levels, my Social Security is taxed, and then 85%. People think they're in a certain tax rate, but if I include that, my tax rate's higher. My tax rate's higher because of this formula that allows my Social Security to get taxed.
Right. And I think sometimes there's a misconception where they think the tax rate that their Social Security benefit will be taxed at a rate of 85%. That's not the case. It's 85% of the benefit is subject to tax, right?
It's a graded formula. Like you may not ever get out of the 50%, right? You'll have some portion of it taxed at 50, and then some at 85, and then once you make over a certain amount. Now, one thing I will tell you that annoys me, these provisional income figures never get inflation adjusted, ever. They need to do that. But they don't. So for some people, these are pretty low thresholds. I take my RMD from my IRA, and I've been saving it my whole life. I'm blowing this out of the water, right? My Social Security is taxed up to 85%.
What about distributions from Roth IRAs, Rich? Does that get calculated into this?
Roth IRAs, completely tax-free. That's why you hear so much in the media about Roth conversions, Roth IRAs. We've been talking about for the last 10 years, and they finally have become popular. Zero tax on that. So here's how you minimize taxes, right? You reduce other income with tax advantage investments, right? You anticipate your RMDs, right? So if my RMD is at 73, like I think my RMD is 75, yours too, John, right?
I'll be at 75.
Yeah. So we have to start drawing that. We want to draw that IRA down or convert that traditional IRA to Roth and delay Social Security, because that reduces the number of years the benefits are subject to tax, right? And you got to manage taxes throughout retirement. People think that, so when I first got in this business in 1989, it was you're going to fall. As soon as you retire, you're going to fall into the lowest tax bracket. And through the 90s, you sort of did. And then it changed. Then it changed. No more. So you have to manage your taxes to keep your average tax rate at least steady so you can plan accordingly. And sometimes that will mean is thinking a little bit outside the box of drawing down your IRA first before you hit Social Security, or drawing down your IRA first before your RMDs, because you're in control of the tax situation. Once RMDs kick in, the government's in control. You lose the tax control. If I convert to Roth, right, I have no RMD requirement. And when I do take money out after 5 years on my holding period, it's completely tax-free. It doesn't come into this provisional income formula.
Medicare. How will
Right.
this affect our Social Security benefit?
Well, you got to remember, if I'm receiving Social Security and age 65 or older, and Medicare, my Part B premiums are going to be deducted. That's generally how it works. Now,
Yeah.
Now, some people who are waiting that we work with, wait till 70, they're going to pay it out of pocket. They're going to pay Medicare out of pocket, right? They're just going to pay the premium. But keep in mind, most of the time, if you're taking Social Security, don't be surprised, your Medicare payment's coming out of it.
Right.
Very important. If you apply early, your benefit starts lower, stays lower for the rest of your life, right? COLAs magnify the impact of either delayed or early, right? The longer you live, the more beneficial it is to delay benefits. Now, you don't know how long you're going to live. This is where you have to look at you and your spouse's life expectancy, your overall health and lifestyle, right? Your benefit may be taxed and reduced to cover the Medicare. And don't let the earnings test discourage you from working. Listen, you're going to work, right? Delaying benefits may give a surviving spouse more income. And that, again, is really important. It's really important. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about spousal benefits. So I'm not going to live long. Yeah. See, everybody knows, even this guy. How do you know you're not going to live long? What is it telling you? Unless you got some sort of cancer, God forbid, or something. Like, when did you get the magic 8 ball for death that you know when you're going to die? So I think people do this to justify their decision, their bad decision. I think they use this as a crutch. Yeah, I'm not going to live long. Well, what are you going to do? Like when I first moved to Texas, I'm going into the woods. I'm like, okay, what are you doing in there? You know.
Yeah. They're not
So
coming back out.
You're not coming back. So you got it set that the woods are there. And the way we're losing woods in Texas, you're going to have a hard time. You might have to go into a Walmart or something. So for couples, you want to maximize the higher earning benefit to protect the deciding spouse. You and your spouse need to pull your Social Security statements and see who the higher earning spouse is. And you want to maximize that higher earner's benefit to protect the spouse who didn't pay in as much.
Yeah, because that spousal benefit is half of the primary worker's primary insurance amount. Right, Rich?
Right. So you can see that here.
Right. So you get John, John's primary insurance amount is $2,000, and his spouse, Jane, well, her primary insurance amount is $800. That's less than half of his. So if Jane applies at her full retirement age, that's a key point, her benefit will then receive a spousal boost. She'll get her benefit of $800 plus a spousal boost to bring her up to half of John's primary insurance amount.
Yeah, and it all depends, right? Because you can have two high earning spouses that are pretty much on their own track of claiming because their benefits higher, right? They may both wait till 70 to maximize both benefits.
Right.
But this really applies a lot with lower earning spouses, especially. That's when the coordination of those benefits really becomes important. So unfortunately, we used to be able to have you file and suspend. So the primary worker would file, and then the spouse would get their benefit, and then they would shut it off. And during the Obama administration, that was taken away. That was a little loophole we would use to exploit a lot.
Yes.
Right? So spouse must be at least 62 for a reduced benefit or full retirement age for full benefit. So I'm the primary worker. I file. Say I file at 67. My spouse is 62. I don't want her filing for spousal. I want her to wait to her full retirement age to get the full benefit. And we have no delayed credit. So a lot of people will ask me, well, my age 70 benefit is 4,000. I'm just using a round number, is 4,000. My full retirement age benefit is 3,000. So you're telling me if I wait till 70, my spouse is going to get half of 4,000? No, because the delayed credits don't count. They're going to get half of the 3,000. That was your full retirement age benefit. The only time it will switch up to that age 70 delayed benefit is when you die. And that is a survivor benefit now.
Correct.
So keep that in mind. And you see why this coordination of benefit is so important?
When it seems like, too, all of the terminology after a while, the more you look at it, it all kind of blends together.
It does.
It's like Social Security soup. You're like, what is this, right?
Well, no, it does. It does.
You made a lot of key points here with like that spousal boost, the spousal benefit, not a survivor benefit. We're talking about the spousal benefit. So if my spouse takes her own benefit early, her own benefit is permanently reduced. And then if she takes that spousal benefit early, the spousal benefit is also reduced. And I think a lot of people fail to realize that.
Here's the biggest rule for everybody listening. You have to at least wait till full retirement age to take your benefit. No one's going to, like, if you don't want to take it at 70 and we're going to arm wrestle over it and you want to take it at 67, okay, but at least you waited. I'm fine. We're going to help you optimize it, but if you say, no, I think I'll just wait till full retirement age, no one's going to argue with you at RAA. If you're going to want to take it early, we're arguing with you.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So that's where you got to coordinate these benefits, right? These spousal benefits. So Social Security was instituted in an era when most married women did not work. So the adjunct to it was, hey, we want to give women a measure of security in retirement. So that's where this spousal benefit came from. But now we know that spousal benefits can apply to either gender, right? You could have a male who's a lower. Matter of fact, The way things are going, women are out earning men now. So men might actually be the ones that would have to do this. So you got to remember, where the lower earning spouse is PA is more than 50% of the higher earning spouse. So that's when you realize that maybe both spouses delayed till 70 because that's the maximization strategy. In other words, I made more than your spousal benefit. So I'm on my benefits track, you're on your benefits track. It's when you have a really lower earning spouse that may have a lot of zeros, that person stayed home and raised children, and they don't have the skill set to go back to work, that spouse is vulnerable. And there is when we want to make sure we are coordinating those benefits properly.
Right. And your spouse, I mean, they could take their own benefit, let's say now, but the spousal boost doesn't start until, let's say for my wife and I, she could take her benefit now as an example, but that spousal boost doesn't start until I take my benefit. That's when the spousal boost starts for her.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the hybrid strategy.
Well, if the low earning spouse is less than 50% of the high earning spouse's PAA, you do a hybrid strategy, and the lower earning spouse goes ahead and claims early, right? This gets the income started sooner, and I've done this before. And when the lower earning spouse is at 62, or whenever that spouse, stops working, the higher earning spouse is still going to claim at 70 to maximize that benefit over both lifetimes. So sometimes we'll be saying to you, your spouse maybe should claim at 62, not working, their own benefit. It's so low. Let's get some extra cash into the household, then switch. So the lower earning spouse, which sounds totally counterintuitive to everything we just told you. Don't claim early. Lower earning spouse claims early. Okay. Keep in mind that sometimes it's worth it to consider this hybrid strategy. You got to work the numbers.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a math and science. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of cash flow come in now and then get a bigger benefit later, right?
I always say this, it's a little sort of macabre way to think about it. The lower earning spouse is like the sacrificial lamb. He or she's got her head on the stick. Like, since you're the higher wage earner, you continue to work, right? And since I'm the much lower wage earner, I'm going to take my benefit early to get some cash into the household so that you can still work to maximize that benefit that we both can use. So if you're widowed or divorced, you may be eligible for survivor benefits, divorced spouse survivor benefits, or divorced spouse benefits that increase your monthly check. A lot of people who get divorced don't realize they might be entitled. So here's how your
Correct.
survivor benefit works, right? If the deceased spouse claims, right? They're alive, they claim, they die. If deceased claim before full retirement age, survivor benefit's going to be limited to the higher of the deceased spouse's benefit or 82% of the 0.5 of his PIA. In other words, it's a decrease for the survivor. If decreased claimed, say the deceased claimed after full retirement age, that survivor benefit is going to include delayed credits. That becomes very important for lower earning spouses and lower earning spouses with children, stay-at-home spouses with children. So allowing your spouse to get the maximum survivor benefit could be very important to many people. So the survivor benefit, so now I'm a survivor, I'm a widow. Now here's the thing. I don't like this part of the benefit because it says if you are a widow, you can collect at 60. Which would be 71.5% of the PI. That's a huge haircut. The way they make it sound sometimes is that you have to take it at 60. I get more questions from widowed spouses that say, oh my God, I have to take it at 60, right? I'm 58, my husband died. No, you don't have to. We don't want to. They give you the option, but don't do it. We don't have to do it. So this is very misleading and very dangerous. Because there's this assumption that you have to take it at 60. No, they give you the option, but don't do it if you don't have to, right?
Well, something else. Well, wages, if let's say they have earned income and they take it at 60, will the wage earnings test reduce their benefit?
Yes. The point is though, even if it didn't, it's 71.5% of the PIA. So unless I think they did this for widowers who are maybe really desperate for cash, like the spouse was the leading breadwinner and they didn't want to make it so onerous. I think they did that. I think there was good intention with this rule, but we got to be careful it's not misused. So if the survivor claims at full retirement age, the survivor benefit is going to equal 100% of the original benefit. So if I'm 71 and I pass away, I claimed at 70, my wife, if she claims at full retirement age, she's going to get my higher survivor benefit. And if she was a lower earning spouse, that would be very important to her.
All these nuances. No wonder why it's confusing, right?
So he has survivor benefits. Joe and Julie are married. Both are over full retirement age. Joe's benefit's $3,600. Julie's benefit is $1,800. Joe dies. Julie says, Social Security, my husband died. Her $1,800 benefit is replaced. So a lot of people are under the impression, oh, now I'm going to get $3,600 plus $1,800. No, you're going to get the higher of the two. So you see why it's important that as the higher earning spouse, the higher wage earner, and perhaps older, waits to take benefits to kick in a higher survivor benefit for the spouse.
I know a question that I get a lot when we're looking at, forward-looking, putting financial projections, financial plans together, especially with couples, is, hey, John, I want to model, hey, if something happens to me, if I predecease my spouse, hey, that income stream, she's, my surviving spouse, my significant other is going to go from having 2 income streams down to 1.
Mm-hmm.
How does that affect the longevity of their plan from that point moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it all ties into that.
So here's Joe and Julie, and Joe is $3,800, but Joe is he's a loving spouse. Good Joe. He's waiting. Claim it at 60. 124% of his PIA is $4,400. 64 and he dies. Well, her survivor benefit is now 4,464.
Not 3,600. Big difference.
Not 3,600. Big difference. A month, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
So here's your rules. Couples must have been married at least 9 months at the date of death. Survivor must be at least 60. We talked about this for reduced benefits, 50 if disabled, but you want to wait for full retirement age. Survivor benefit is not available if widower remarries before age 60, unless that marriage ends, and divorced spouse survivor benefit available if the marriage lasted at least 10 years.
Yeah. So here's
if you are a divorced spouse, you might be entitled to a benefit you didn't even know about. And listen, your ex-spouse is not going to call you and go, hey, you're entitled to my, benefit. They're not going to do that. It's going to be up to you to contact Social Security Administration, explain it, that you fit the rules, and you deserve a survivor benefit.
So here's a question. I'm going to share this. This is a question from one of our listeners this morning, from Tom. So very timely with this. As a survivor, can I take spouse benefits and then take my own benefit at age 70?
You can if yours is higher.
That's correct.
In other words, if you're waiting because at age 70 that your benefit's higher and you were a high wage earner, yes.
Because Social Security would pay you the higher of the two.
Same as spousal benefits. Married lasted 10 years or more. Person receiving the divorce spouse benefit is unmarried because, in other words, if you're going to get married again, you'll get the benefits of your new spouse, right?
Right. So I actually had this conversation with a client earlier this week. And I think they're actually tuning in this morning. Thank you. This very particular situation, but the ex-spouse is not 62 yet. They're just a little bit below 62. So we get questions around this. You
gotta wait.
You gotta wait. Yep, you gotta wait.
And you gotta remember, there's that nuance. If the divorce is more than 2 years, if the divorce is more than 2 years ago, the ex-spouse does not need to have filed for benefits. That there's no trigger there if the divorce was more than 2 years ago.
Correct. Because if it was less than 2 years ago, they would have to be filing on their benefit. That's a key difference between the two.
It is. I don't know why the 2-year rule is in there. It is.
They're keeping us on our toes.
And I always picture these actuaries like trolls in the basement trying to figure all this stuff out.
Here's how we're going to get them.
Oh, we're going to do it this way, right? So again, more than one ex-spouse, if you're like, Elizabeth Taylor, I could be collecting benefits on all my ex-spouses, right? Benefits paid to one ex-spouse does not affect those paid to the worker. That's why a lot of exes are hesitant to share the data, because what they think is, you're glomming off for me again. No, you still get your benefit. But divorce spouse benefits stop upon the remarriage of the spouse collecting the benefits. It doesn't matter what the primary worker does. You're still entitled as the divorced spouse as long as you fit the criteria.
Right. So sometimes the concern I hear is, well, do I need to let my previous spouse know that I'm collecting off their record? And the answer is no. The previous spouse won't even know you're collecting a divorced spouse benefit.
I did have one spouse call their ex-spouse and just to needle them. I'm taking half your Social Security benefit and you're in trouble. And he's like, called me like, oh my God, well, what happens? I'm like, nothing happens. She's just torturing you. So this is really more complicated in some ways. We know it because we live and breathe it. So for us, it's not as complicated, but for a lot of people, this is like, oh my gosh, coordination of benefits and what PIA, FRA, it's very, very confusing. So the job of your fiduciary advisor is to make it easier. Help you avoid narratives, like it's going away tomorrow. It's not. And let me explain this to you. This is the one last thing we'll say. If the trust fund is not going to be fully depleted, is depleted enough where you're going to get a 20 to 21% haircut on your benefit, so people will rationalize, well, if I take it at 62, I'm going to get everything out of it. and then they'll cut my benefit later on. So I ran a comparison. I ran a comparison of someone who was 62 and someone who was waited till 70. The age 62 person, they're both going to get a 20% haircut to their benefit. Both. But this person says, I'm going to start at 62 and accumulate money. This person says, I'm going to wait, roll the dice. I'm going to listen to the RIA guys. You know, I'm not going to let all the narrows get me. What do you think happened? Even though I started later and I got a 20% haircut off the benefit, I still had over 70% more benefit than this person did at age 62, who gets a haircut up front, right? They're getting a 20% haircut up front for taking a reduced benefit. Then they're getting hit in the groin with another 20%. It is still worth to wait, even if there's a 20% haircut, because it's coming off a wider, higher base. The money you're accumulating because of the full reduction at age 62 is not enough to overcome that. And that's what people have to realize. Taking it earlier doesn't sometimes mean more cash when you figure out the whole scenario of what you're giving up. Think about what you're giving up at age 62 versus what you're getting at 62. And that's a different reframe that will help you look at these benefits a lot different. Right. We're not making those terrible decisions anymore because we attended Candid Coffee. We're not doing that, right? Inflation protected income, your benefit will be reduced if you claim early. Couples have to look at it together. And if you're widowed or divorced, you might be eligible for benefits that can increase your check in retirement.
And it's like you said, it's personal to everybody. It's bespoke. There's not a
really
standard protocol for claiming Social Security. It really is an individual or a couple's based decision.
18,000 different claiming methods. 18,000. This is very customized. And in the context of pensions, IRAs, right? It's part of your overall retirement income strategy in retirement. Because income is the lifeblood of retirement. Sure, you need growth. We know you could live 20, 30 years and we need growth. But that cash flow coming in becomes absolutely essential in retirement to replace your working capital. So this has to be coordinated with in the context of your full retirement income plan. And that's what we do at RIA. We're decumulation specialists. Yes, we have accumulators, but we also have to help you understand how to decumulate.
So thoughts on what Social Security folks can or can't do, Rich?
Yeah, they can estimate benefits. If you're divorced, they can do that. They could predict. They can help with innovative strategies. No. In other words, they're just going to give you an estimate, the amount you're entitled to. But they're not going to give you a strategy. They're not trained to do that, and they're not going to do that. Here's your benefit. This is how much you're entitled. You're a divorced spouse. This is what you're going to get. That's it. I mean, it's important, but that's all they can do. Your advisor is going to do the can't side and help you maximize or optimize. Look at the strategies that you should be looking at. We'll give you a choice of strategies and the impact of such choices. They can't do that at the Social Security office or with Social Security personnel. They're not going to be able to do it. They're not equipped to do it.
Yeah. Get a lot of questions around this, right? A lot on a regular basis.
You got to run a financial plan and figure out and pull your statements, understand your statements, check your annual earnings, make sure the statements are accurate. If you got any zeros, we got to fill those in if you haven't hit your 35 highest years. These are all important decisions that you need to make. We help with those decisions. Actually, John holds the NSSA certification. We have a couple of our advisors that do, but we are all trained in social, no, actually 3 of our planners do, but we are very well equipped to discuss this with you.
hey, what are we doing next? Open enrollment's right around the corner. So what are we going to talk
Study
about?
Medicare planning. We're going to talk about how who should enroll, understanding the multiple enrollment periods, the devil of the alphabet soup. Very important you make the right decision with Medicare, because if you don't enroll on time, these penalties are forever. So make sure, sign up for Thursday, September 18th at noon at realinvestmentadvice.com. And then follow us at Real Investment Advice. Lance is a blog machine. Lance has been recognized by market, all these different places. He's on Fox Business with Charles Payne on every week. Follow us, sign up for our newsletter. You'll learn. We do everything in-house. For some of you who are not familiar with us, just take a look at the website. I write about financial planning topics. We're writing almost every day. And
Yeah,
as fiduciaries, we're not selling you a product, right? We're the product. We're here to help you.
Yeah, we all like to teach and educate, right? And
That's what we have to be, educators at heart. Otherwise, we couldn't do this.
Exactly. So yeah, please, stop by the website, look at all our various media outlets, and as there are topics or questions that you have, send them to us. We're happy to put things together like this and discuss it, or through our
Well, we
various
might do it
media.
on our Financial Fitness Friday podcast,
Yeah.
right? If you all send in questions, we'll do a show on, here are all the questions that we got in Candid Coffee, and we're going to address them today on our podcast. We're happy to do that.
And hey, I know we went a little bit longer today.
We're very grateful that you decided to spend some time with us today.
Very much so. Well, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Rich. Thanks, Brent, everybody. And we'll see you next time.